Well, our next guest is Dave Camp. He's new chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee, which oversees tax writing policy. And he joins our very own Lizzie O'Leary on Capitol Hill. Lizzie, how are you?
Good, thanks a lot, Lisa. Yeah, I'm here with Chairman Camp, the new chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. And before we get to taxes, I do want to ask you quickly about the health care repeal that you all passed in the House. You know as well as I do that the Senate passage looks very different. But let's talk about what you all want to put forward, not just the repeal vote. I'd like to know what is in the House Republican plan.
Well, now that we've had the bipartisan repeal vote, we're going to look at...
Bipartisan by 3 votes.
Hey, that beats the passage anytime. But look, I think it's important that we make sure that we have an open process and that we actually hear from people. But we want to make sure that we have a patient-centered healthcare system that doesn't increase their taxes.
Does that mean no mandate?
Cost. I think it means no mandate. I think the individual employer mandate, so I think obviously 26 states have sued on the individual mandate, and that's working its way through the court system. But it raises costs, and it causes people to lose the health care they've got. And I think what we want to make sure we do is, as I said, have a patient-centered healthcare system where people can actually get the health plan that's most tailored to their needs, not one that's designed by the Secretary of Health and Human Services in Washington, D.C.
Let me move to tax policy. One of the big questions Secretary Geithner has raised with business leaders is whether any overhaul of the tax code needs to be revenue neutral. That is, it can't add to the deficit. That sounds to some people like you got to raise some taxes or you eliminate loopholes that bring in more money. Does reform have to be revenue neutral in your eyes?
Well, I think that's an issue that you want to try to hold to. I don't think that we have a taxation problem. We have a spending problem. And so we want to lower tax rates, not increase government spending. We need to reduce government spending. So I think you want to start off the reform discussion with revenue neutrality. We do need to cut spending. That's in another part of the Congress and another committee, but I think that's important to do. But we want to have a tax code that isn't as complex as the one we've got now, that lets us compete around the world. Other countries have been lowering their tax rates, have a much simpler system than we have. So we need to look at fairness, at lack of complexity, and lowering the tax burden, I think.
Well, what does that mean for the corporate tax rate? Because we hear a lot of people say we have such a high corporate tax rate, but then you go and look at the taxes, particularly multinationals, actually paid. When you look at GE, it's something like 3.6%. It's nowhere near the top tier rate. So how do you make a big company with operations in the U.S. and outside actually pay its taxes?
Well, at the first hearing we had in the Ways and Means Committee this year, we actually had a lot of consensus on that issue, and there was a real belief that we need to bring the rates down and close off some of these loopholes. That will obviously affect different industries, different companies differently. But overall, for overall tax policy, I think that's the direction we need to go in. And then you don't have distortions in terms of investment decisions. And we want to be the country that these multinationals are headquartered in. And
well, what's the right number?
I don't think anybody's got a number in mind because we have to see where exactly, how many of these extra provisions we can get rid of and how low we can bring the rates. But I think as actually the witness for the Democrats said, 0 would be the best rate possible. But obviously that isn't very realistic, but as low as we can.
One final quick question. Some companies pay as pass-throughs. They pay individual rates, not corporate rates. Would you like to get rid of that?
Yes, that's why I think you have to look at both the business side and the individual side, because more and more businesses are organized as pass-through entities that pay taxes as individuals. So we got to do both.
All right, Congressman Camp, thank you so much. Lisa, back to you in New York.